What if the reason you spend money impulsively has almost nothing to do with willpower? And what if the advice to just stop is not only unhelpful, but based on a fundamental misreading of how the brain actually works? The conventional story goes something like this. Wealthy people delay gratification. They resist the pull of the immediate reward, the new phone, the dinner out, the upgrade, and instead redirect that money toward the future. Poor financial outcomes, by contrast, are explained as failures of self-control. You chose now over later, repeatedly, and the compound interest of those choices caught up with you. This framing has enormous cultural staying power. It shows up in productivity advice, in personal finance books, in the casual moralizing of financial influencers. The implication is clear. Impulsive spending is a character flaw. Fix the character, fix the finances. And the research, at first glance, seems to support this. There is a well-established concept in behavioral economics and neuroscience called delayed discounting, the tendency to assign lower value to rewards that arrive in the future compared to rewards available right now. Studies have consistently found that higher rates of delayed discounting correlate with worse financial outcomes, worse health outcomes, even problematic substance use. The logic appears airtight. People who choose now over later struggle more. People who can wait, build. So the prescription writes itself. Learn to wait. Develop discipline. Override the impulse. Stop doing this one thing. Except the prescription is built on a much shakier foundation than anyone in the self-help space will tell you. Here is where the mainstream story quietly falls apart. The research on delayed discounting, the very science used to justify the just delay gratification advice, measures impulsivity through controlled laboratory tasks. A researcher offers you a hypothetical choice, $10 today or $15 in a week. Your answer generates a data point. From enough data points, a profile emerges, but there is a critical gap between a hypothetical choice in a lab and the actual financial decisions a person makes inside a life shaped by uncertainty, scarcity, past experience, and incomplete information. A 2019 study examined the cognitive mechanisms underlying procrastination and impulsive choice, and found that what looks like a failure of self-control is often better understood as a failure of future self-continuity. The brain's ability to vividly simulate and emotionally connect with the person you will be later. This is not a moral failure. It is a feature of how the default mode network and prefrontal systems interact under different conditions. And those conditions are not evenly distributed. One subtle and orderly, one unpredictable and sparse. Abstract, not stereotype. A 2022 study found significant relationships between adverse childhood experiences and higher rates of delayed discounting. People who grew up in environments of instability, where resources were unpredictable, where promises about the future were routinely broken, showed measurably different patterns in intertemporal choice. Their nervous systems learned something accurate. The future is not safe to invest in. That is not irrationality. That is a rational adaptation to an unreliable environment. The self-help framing of stop choosing now over later treats delay discounting as a stable personality trait that discipline can simply override. The evidence suggests it is far more dynamic, far more context-dependent, and far more entangled with history than that framing allows. Let's be specific about what the neuroscience actually shows and what it does not. A 2013 study used neuroimaging to track what happens in the brain during intertemporal choice, decisions between smaller immediate rewards and larger delayed ones. The researchers found that impulsive choices were associated with stronger ventral striatum activation for immediate rewards, while self-controlled choices involved greater lateral prefrontal engagement, maintaining the value representation of future rewards. The key word is maintaining. The prefrontal cortex was not suppressing desire. It was sustaining a representation, holding the future reward in mind long enough for it to compete with the immediate one. If the problem were simply desire, wanting things, then willpower-based advice would make sense. But if the problem is the brain's ability to keep the future reward vividly present in working memory, then telling someone to just resist is like telling someone with poor eyesight to just look harder. A 2019 study on neural correlates of intertemporal choice found that the same prefrontal regions implicated in delayed discounting also regulate aggressive impulse control, suggesting these systems are domain general, not specifically financial. And a 2017 study found overlap between the neural circuits governing intertemporal self-control and those governing interpersonal self-control, how we respond to social pressure and immediate social rewards. What this suggests is that the capacity to delay gratification is not a single financial discipline skill you can isolate and train in a vacuum. It is woven into broader systems of self-regulation that are themselves shaped by development, stress, and social environment. A 2024 study on decision-making and impulsivity found that emotional arousal significantly altered impulsive choice patterns, meaning the same person in a different emotional state makes measurably different decisions. This is not a study of weak-willed people. This is a study of how the human brain works under load. And a 2021 study on impulsivity found consistent evidence that delay discounting rates are malleable. They shift with context, with framing, with cognitive load, with mood. They are not a fixed trait stamped into you at birth. Now, to be honest about what this evidence does not prove, it does not prove that spending choices are entirely outside of conscious influence. It does not eliminate agency from the picture. What it does is complicate the story considerably and make the just stop advice look less like wisdom and more like advice that works best for people who were never fighting very hard to begin with. So what does this mean for you, practically, in your actual financial life? Here's the reframe that matters. If you have tried to change your spending patterns and failed, not once, but repeatedly, the most likely explanation is not that you lack discipline. The most likely explanation is that your brain is running a very old calculation about whether the future is a safe place to invest your resources. And you cannot think your way out of a calculation you are not consciously running. There is something the trauma-informed literature calls a nervous system response. A state where the body has learned to protect you from a threat that may no longer be present. If you grew up where money was unreliable, where things were taken away, where the future felt abstract and dangerous, your financial impulsivity may be protection, not weakness. There is also a language dimension here worth sitting with. I can't afford it, and I'm choosing not to prioritize it are not the same sentence. One locates the problem in external constraint, the other locates it in agency. Neither is always true, but the story you run about your own financial behavior shapes what solutions even feel available to you. I can't afford it. Crossed out, replaced with I'm choosing not to prioritize this right now. The research suggests that the path forward, if there is one, is less about grinding discipline and more about changing the conditions under which decisions get made, reducing cognitive load, creating environmental defaults, and perhaps most importantly, building enough genuine safety that the future starts to feel worth investing in, creating environmental defaults. And here is the tension I cannot resolve for you. The neuroscience is clear that delay discounting is malleable. Context changes it. Environment changes it. That is genuinely hopeful. But it also means that for some people, the conditions required to change it are not simply internal, they are structural, social, economic. You cannot meditation app your way out of an environment that keeps confirming that the future is unsafe. And the financial advice industry has almost no interest in saying that out loud, because it cannot sell you a course about systemic conditions. What I keep returning to is this. The brain is not broken when it chooses now. It is solving the problem in front of it with the information it has. The question worth asking is not why can't I stop? The question is, what would the future need to look like for it to feel worth waiting for? The research behind this video draws from Wiley interdisciplinary reviews. Cognitive Science, Appetite, Frontiers in Psychology, Health Psychology, Official Journal of the Division of Health Psychology, American Psychological Association, Frontiers in Behavioral Neuroscience, the Journal of Neuroscience, the Official Journal of the Society for Neuroscience, Aggressive Behavior, Neuroimage. Every claim traces to a published source. Full citations are in the description below. If the way this channel thinks about neuroscience resonates with you, subscribing helps this work reach people who'd appreciate it. New videos on the science of mind